Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. I'm Justin Michael. I've got Andre Simone here, the man, the myth, the legend. We've got a lot to dive into. We've got recruiting news. We're going to talk about the latest odds from a Vegas bookmaker in regards to the future of the Pac-12, kind of where the Mountain West teams factor into all that. Dre's had an hectic morning. He's got business moves happening behind the scenes, so he's going to get in the zone here in a second.
I'm walking in, baby.
I've got some fun stuff coming up this weekend as well. I've got tomorrow, we're going live, and I'm going to play my interview with Bob Rose. He covers the Saints. We kind of talked about Dallin Holker, how he fits into the Clint Kubiak offense, who the guys that you should pay attention to in terms of like who Dallin will be competing with for a roster spot. It was an awesome interview. You guys are going to enjoy it.
You're on an interview heater this offseason.
Hey, you gotta
some good ones.
You gotta get interesting in the off season. There's not as much natural content. Got to get a little creative, but it's been fun.
Well, you get to have more fun. You get to talk to different voices. That's great, man. I love it.
I like it too. Get to branch out a little bit. So yeah, don't miss out on that. We're gonna start with some hoops recruiting news here. Then we're gonna talk about the latest edition for CSU football. Like I said at the end, we're gonna talk about a rebuilt Pac-12, what that could look like, how CSU could factor into that, who the teams that they see being in the conversation, being all of that fun stuff. Real quick, though, CSU, I don't want to get Rams fans' hopes up, but they are in the mix for Winters Grady, who is a 6'7" wing, guard / forward, however you want to label him. This dude is the truth, man. He is a natural scorer. He can create at all levels. Really natural with the ball in his hands, a pure shooter. I mean, this is a guy that can get to multiple spots on the floor and really beat you. The Rams have been in on him for a couple years, so I've been following him pretty closely. Officially posted about an offer the other day. He's in the class of 2025. Teams that are interested in him include, Creighton and Virginia, and he's going to have a ton of interest. Wouldn't surprise me if he's a 5-star by the time he actually signs. We'll see, though. The Rams, they already signed a couple of players that he's really tight with. Jaden Step, I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce it yet. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm going to have to ask him for clarification. He's a 4-star kid that's coming in the 2024 class, and then A.J. Noland signed with the football side. His dad's also a former CSU player. I mean, the Ram ties are deep, and I like the way that this staff has handled these last couple of years in basically recruiting them as a crew. I mean, you're recruiting them individually. Like, it's not like you set them all down and are like, we want y'all. But I think it's smart of CSU to kind of lean into this situation. And, they played AAU ball together. There was actually another guy, Jaden Fortier, a tight end, who ended up signing with Arizona State, but CSU was in on him too. They're just trying to do everything that they can to land these athletes from, programs that they know have consistently, I guess, translated at the next level. Right. And you're taking advantage of the natural ties you have, which is huge. I mean, anytime you can be in the mix for the son of a former player.
Yep, that's exactly right. Any former alums kid, you gotta lock in on
Well, and it seems obvious. Like, I think there are probably some people listening like, yeah, like, no shit. You would offer a 4-star that has connections to the program. You'd be amazed how many coaches across the country get stubborn or like, it wasn't their guy. They didn't find him, so we're not going to offer him.
Right.
It's not rocket science. Like, just take advantage of the relationships available, and we'll see. Hopefully, the fact that you've been in on him now for a couple of years will pay off when some of these bigger schools are going to come, sniffing around last minute.
Yeah, and we'll see how this recruitment progresses. If we get an official visit here soon, what other schools start to get in on him. I'm surprised Oregon originally. He's playing out at Prolific Prep in California, that he's not getting more West Coast, the old Pac-12.
It's coming. It's coming. Like, he's had it's been a lot of like Oregon and Washington, and he's from Oregon originally, so it makes sense. I think, by the time this fall rolls around, it's going to be, you're going to see the Gonzagas and the St. Mary's and the San Diego States and all those programs come.
Exactly.
But, I mean, this is why you're in on these guys early. You've been talking to him since he was a freshman in high school, so you're hoping that it pays off for you. And ultimately, I'd be pretty surprised if they don't at least get him on campus. If I'm CSU, I'm getting him on campus for the showdown. It doesn't even matter if they win. I mean, as long as you don't get like blown out or something, you just want them to experience that atmosphere. And I mean, campus is going to be rocking. Like, you can bring his buddies already going to be on campus. Like, it just works out so naturally of having him there. That'd be early September. So the timeline makes sense. I remember they
out with
brought
good weather
Roddy
too,
on,
man.
you know, for a similar situation when you had like a high major coming into town. So
West Coast kids will be blown away by how nice it is in the fall here too.
oh, September in Fort Collins is
it's
untouchable.
perfect. It really
it's
is
elite.
untouchable on a game day, nonetheless. Just trying to look at what other. That's definitely the one, man. Pokes come to town, November.
You want it to be early. You don't want them to be bundled up. Like,
I think so too.
I mean, you could do the Ag Day against Northern Colorado because the stadium's going to be full. Like, it's a good vibe. But I think you just want the raw energy of CU. If you can get him on campus for an official for that, I think that's got to be the goal.
I like it. As we're putting out on the Toyota chat, if you're tuning in on Twitter, which we call Twitter, but Alyssa she's put an X in writing. Jump on in on YouTube, leave us a thumbs up, join the Toyota chat. Let's talk it out. I'm really excited for some of this Pac-12 and the future of college sports, which is what we have the most fun talking about. But the future of the Rams, very bright. Winters Grady, man. Kind of exciting.
Very exciting. Couple updates for you just on the hoop side before we transition over to football.
Yeah.
Former New Mexico and CSU guard Javonte Johnson has committed to Cal Baptist. He didn't make a big show of it. I didn't see a post, but he's updated his IG bio.
I respect it.
Didn't work out for him at CSU, unfortunately. Just didn't really fit within the flow of the offense the way stylistically the Rams wanted to play. He's more of like a high volume shooter. And it didn't really work out, but that doesn't mean that he's not talented or certainly have the ability to break out. So I'm rooting for him to go out on top. I think it probably had to be just from a human level kind of tough. Like, you come in as one of three, you know, Colorado Springs kids, him, Joel Scott, Neek Clifford. They all knew each other growing up. Neek and Joel obviously get exactly what they hoped for out of this season. It didn't pan out the way you hoped for Javonte, but I mean, he was a good teammate all year round. And he's a good kid, so we're rooting for him. Shout out to Javonte Johnson. Finished strong at Cal Baptist. Speaking of Neek Clifford, though, on Sunday, I did a podcast where I played an interview from the combine of Neek Clifford talking with Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated. And he made it very clear that his intention is to remain in the draft so long as, you know, he stays healthy and all of that. Kyle Boone, though, of CBS Sports this morning, he released an article talking about players that are going to have some tough decisions in terms of the draft.
Yeah.
He has Neek Clifford along with Bronny James as one of 5 players that should return to school. This is what he says. I'm buying big on Clifford long term, but he had a mixed week at the combine with some good and some bad that mostly kept his stock idle. The frame and shooting project neatly for him at the NBA level, so I'd understand if he stayed in. Returning to school and building off of a breakout season last year at Colorado State might do him well, though. One of the things that I talked about on Sunday, and I want to pick your brain on it, I mean, I think he's probably at the very minimum guaranteed a 2-way contract. He's a 6'5" forward. He's still young. He's got a 6'8" wingspan. He's already an NBA caliber defender. He's got to be much more consistent offensively. He's got to tighten the handle, you know, prevent some of the turnovers he had.
Yeah.
He could potentially, though, and maybe this isn't a fair comparison, but like I think of a guy like Dalton Connect, who is probably a 2-way contract if he goes pro out of UNC a year ago. He transfers to Tennessee. Now he's a lottery pick.
At best, a 2-way
now,
contract.
like, I'm not saying Neek's going to be a lottery pick, but I do think he has. I think he's an NBA player. The question is he an NBA player right now? And would it be a better gamble? I mean, it is a gamble anytime you come back, but is it a better gamble to come back and try and play your way into a guaranteed deal rather than being in the, you know, probably fringe late second round mix, maybe UDFA? I mean, it's tough. If you're going to get a 2-way contract, that's a lot of guaranteed money. But
no, if you get a 2-way, I mean, you're basically on an NBA vet minimum, and you're in the NBA, and you're probably making better money than just about any other league you would have been able to in the world, right? Straight out of college. The equation is going to be this for Nick. It's going to be, where does he really go? Because, Kyle Boone suggests this. Jonathan Gavoni and ESPN in their mock from yesterday morning do not have Nick in the first 2 rounds. It's only 58 picks this year. There's a few forfeited picks and stuff. So
really?
There's fewer picks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the second apron's getting tricky, man. People are forfeiting picks. It's a wild one. He's ESPN again, Gavoni, who's kind of,
he's
I
pretty
would
locked
say
in.
the most locked in of all right now. He's the 26th ranked shooting guard. It's not very good. But there are other people, and I tend to be more on this side, and his combine showing wasn't extraordinary. But it's like, look, this is a guy who profiles as a 3-and-D wing.
The upside is all there.
With that kind of athleticism. The handle, look, he let us down sometimes as that secondary playmaker and stuff.
But that's not what he's going to be in the NBA.
When you're the 5th best guy on the court,
it's going to be catch and shoot.
Dude, it's catch and shoot.
And drive.
It's attacking closeouts, which who's better than Nick at attacking closeouts? And then once in a while, in the fast break, you can dish, bring it up. Like that handle isn't broken. I actually think for a 2-guard, decent handle could project, right? And he really fits a winning team. Like if the Nuggets lost KCP and Christian Brown is your starting shooting guard, he's a perfect Christian Brown replacement off the bench, right?
And I just think you talk yourself into him in what's widely considered an incredibly weak class.
It's widely considered an incredibly weak class, and yet it is incredibly deep.
Well, it's just there's a lot of projects. There's a lot of guys that could pan out. There's just no guarantees.
I think there's like 80 guys who I could see being like rotation dudes, right? It's just like
it's just a crapshoot.
How many real max guys are there? How many real? He's a guy I could make a big 3 out of in 5 years.
It's a good year to be like a Nuggets. It's not like if you got the number 1 pick this year, you're like, really?
Right.
Like we finally got the number 1.
Terrible year to be the Wizards or Pistons. Great year to be the Nuggets. To where I think the Nuggets have a late first, a late second, and I think they could bring home 3 good rookies because I think the undrafted pool is going to be so big. So Nick's decision's really interesting.
Well, the second apron thing, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
I think that's a major factor because teams have to be dependent on young talent, like because you just can't afford. We saw it with the Nuggets. You lose a guy like Bruce Brown simply because you can't afford to keep him around.
The league's never been younger, man.
You're going to have to take chances on guys like Nick Clifford who have traits that already are NBA caliber. He's an NBA level defender right now. Today, you could put him out there and he would hang.
And an NBA level athlete
and
has
athleticism,
the size, right?
So all of that.
So all we need is him to hit.
He needs a more
threes.
polished offensive game. And I will say, if I was trying to fade him or be like, what's the potential downside? Catch and shoot was not his most prolific, element of his offense a year ago, and he got kind of hesitant as as the struggles happened. I saw some of that at the combine too, but he's so young, and like you said, you can't coach the athleticism that he has. You can't coach being 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan. And I just think in this class, and just based on the fact that he's been so honest, like from the start, like I really want to go pro. Like I love CSU. I'm thankful for CSU. If he were to not go pro, I think he would come back. I don't think he would transfer because the system is perfect fit for him.
Do not go away from the place that just turned you from like, this guy's career might be over to like, damn, he's an NBA player. Speaking this glowingly of him. The other question is, adding a year, how much does that hurt you versus that extra exposure? How much will that help you in what's probably a stronger draft? Now, Nick in his role, though, is he going to be helped or hurt to be the lead guy at CSU next year?
Well, the nice thing is he won't be the lead facilitator, which is good. They bring in Bowen Bourne, you bring in Kashawn Williams, you've got Kyan Evans. So like I don't think it's going to be a lot of him.
But he's going to have to carry more of the load, right?
He's going to have to create more offensively for himself, and he's going to have to make some of those. So yeah, it is truly a gamble. Right? But the caveat is if you do that and you prove it, like you go from that to like maybe you're a top 20 pick or a top 25 pick.
I know. And
he might be that anyway.
He might go in the top 30 this year, right? For all we know. And you're saying a 2-way you feel good about.
I think that's at
maybe
minimum.
a little more on the
You think G League?
on the fence. You just never know. There's undrafted guys who will get two ways. There's guys who are drafted in the top 40 who might not get them. Like
it's true.
or
That's true.
who might just kind of be traded for a bag of peanuts in 6 months. Like it's tough.
He's got a bright future. So bright, you might need some Shady Rays.
Dang! Look at these ram-colored glasses.
Look at that. Looking sharp. Get ready for the season ahead with quality
Those are
shades
beautiful.
built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays are an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Crystal clear optics. I love that they are polarized, but when you wear them
so good.
outside, it's not like, oh man, it feels like it's 2 a.m. It's so
Yep.
dark out here.
Yep.
Get rid of the glare while seeing everything you need to see. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com, use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people, and you can look as fly as my man Andre Simone.
Damn straight.
I also want to shout out Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and Toyota trucks have always been a part of their DNA.
Yeah.
For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness that are perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a truck that's just right for you, like the all-new 2024 Tacoma or the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. They offer 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. You've got 16 different hybrids to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR.
Nicely done.
We're 100 days from the week 1 opener. Put it
It's
on
incredible.
the calendar.
Yeah, which means week 0 is even closer. I can't wait.
Less than 100 days from college football. We're like probably, I'd guess, about a month from like the preview magazines coming out. That's my favorite, by the way. When you go over to Barnes and Noble, get the most recent Phil Steele and Athlon,
season, yeah.
and Phil Steele. I gotta say, if you want bang for your buck, that's definitely the one to go with. Some of the other ones are solid, but
Phil's got to fix his formatting. Also, I worry that Phil, with the new era, all this roster movement, that he's fallen behind just a smidge.
Maybe a little bit, but he still gets the best access of anybody because every coach in the country gives him an entire hour in the summer,
That's true.
which is,
It's just, his projections used to be so on point. Now, by the time he's written it, maybe like 5 guys have left.
I mean, it's tough in a print world now these days to create I've done some stuff the last couple of years. It's hard to do that these days because things change in a week. Now all of a sudden you went to print, but
Damn straight.
I can't wait. I'm excited to see how this season pans out for CSU. Obviously, big expectations with the schedule. We talked about all of that in recent weeks. Yesterday, though, CSU picked up a much-needed commitment for the secondary. Chris Jackson, 6 foot, 170-pound transfer cornerback out of San Diego Mesa. A nice little JUCO addition for CSU. 2 interceptions, 14 PBUs, 31 tackles over the last 2 seasons. He's got good length. He runs extremely well. He's got a track background that's big for Norvell and Freddie Banks in this defense. They want corners that are big and lanky and that can run. They want to be able to press. They want guys that are going to attack the ball aggressively. Yeah.
They turned that secondary around pretty quickly, I thought. They played really well with that length on the boundaries. That was one of my big questions coming into the season. There's some exceptions,
Yeah, I mean, Utah State was a rough day.
Utah State, yeah. God, that's a hard one to forget, Utah State.
Well, it's just like one of those situations, I would prefer that you judge me based on my best day, but
Right.
I hope you don't do it all based on my worst day. And that was a bad day for the defense, but they had their moments. They've got to be better in man, and Norvell's been really open about that.
And jokes aside, that's what you sacrifice a little bit, right? Like you're going with that length. You're going to get more cover 3 looks where you trust your deep safety. A guy like Jack Howell is phenomenal, and then Blackburn can come in a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And those corners can just take care of the boundary, use that length. Trail technique, you use that extra length to kind of catch up. Well, where it gets you is against those smaller, nimble guys who are going to give you a bit of a taste of your own medicine, and kill you with crossers, and you are going to have to go to man more often.
I'm really interested to see. I mean, you're basically, as of right now, likely going to be starting 2 new corners. I mean, Dom Jones is back from North Dakota State. He had some moments last year at second on the team with 2 picks. Like, I think he's got a chance to start maybe over Elias Larry. I think Asisima is definitely going to start. Now you bring in a guy with some experience. It makes you feel a little bit better. I feel good about the defense. It's the big question mark basically at all 3 levels is what happens if a guy goes down. Mm-hmm. You've got decent experience in the D-line and who should be starting. Same thing at linebacker. Same thing, obviously, the safeties, Howell, Blackburn. These guys have been here forever. Elias Larry and Asisima, they're new in your system, but these are guys that have been multi-year starters at other programs. If those guys go down, it's like you're looking at a lot of first and second year players having to play. And sometimes that's a good thing. Like, you see guys like TJ Crandall break out a year ago.
It pays off in the long run, too.
It does.
In the immediate, though, it can be a tough one to swallow.
Well, and especially when you look at the schedule that the Rams play and, you got Texas and CU right off the bat. Like, you kind of need some guys that have been out there, and you hope that as the season goes on, as you get into Mountain West play, you're playing some Nevadas and New Mexicos. Like, that's when all right, like, let's get guys like Dylan Phelps, who's, I think, going to break out here in year 2. Let's get the Gardners out there, Jalen Gardners, who we've been hearing about since, the very first spring he was on campus. You do need a little bit of experience, and especially just given how you got to have some success in September this year. Like, I don't think you can go into the league slate with a losing record and expect to compete for a bowl. Like, it would be really tough given the schedule.
Why must the stakes be so high right off the bat?
I've been going back and forth on this. So this will be outside of 2020, which doesn't count, and they should have played 3 Power 5s that year. But they've played at least 1 Power 5 every year since 2013. Usually it's 2. And financially, it makes sense. Exposure, it makes sense. The more these seasons go on, I'm starting to wonder, like, is it just better to play like a Greeley and a UTEP and somebody else, and you have like the one? Like, I think you do. I mean, you don't want to just have, especially for season ticket holders, like, you don't want to have just like a lame dud schedule.
Or, I mean, could you build your schedule like some of these SEC programs where you get the 3, non-conference, and then you've got another one of your cupcakes later on. Like, it's almost a scheduled bye, Like, I think that would help. It's like, it's more just having all this pressure to start off the season. And then, honestly, the pressure should all be on the conference schedule. That's where it really matters and really starts.
It would have to be like a conference-wide initiative, because the SEC is all willing to play. Like, they're all willing to play that November non-conference game. Right, so you'd have to get everybody on board. But
and it's just like programs like CSU, where it's been years of trying to build something. Having that momentum in September to start off the season is massive, man.
Well, and it's why I've always argued I like when the showdown is not week 1, because there's so much build up into it all off season. And then if you lose that, it's like, it almost like you could feel the air go out of the program. Like, it would be a 1-month hangover, and they'd always respond eventually, but like, you could just feel the emotional letdown.
Big. Yes.
And it's especially into this year, like, you could really afford to just get some positive momentum rolling.
Yeah. And the Rams, especially, there were times especially last season, where they still look to me like a team that sometimes end of games, second halves, got a little tight and was looking around like, I know we've lost this game in the past, and like.
And I think that's a hard thing to break, especially with these guys who have experienced nothing but that their entire career. Yes. Like, that's, if you're Jack Howell, like, you come in, and literally, like, you come in as a freshman in 2021 or whatever it was, and immediately start your career with blowing games against Vanderbilt and South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, it was like that. They saw that coming in. It was like that when they got here. It's been like that through multiple coaching staffs. Like, it's hard to erase these losing tendencies. And I think that's like very natural when you've been in that situation a lot, when you just kind of naturally start to expect it. You're just waiting for that other shoe to fall.
100%.
It's a big year, but a big pickup for CSU on the recruiting trail. I'll have a written piece coming out this afternoon. Some of his other offers include New Mexico State, Coastal Carolina, Ball State, Montana, Cal Poly, and Stephen F. Austin. Keeping things on the recruiting side for CSU football.
The legend Taylor Deck in the Toyota chat. What up, Taylor?
Appreciate you guys locking in with us. Going live again tomorrow at 10. Tavares Dawson, the speedster that's transferring out of CU, he's going to visit Marshall this weekend. Seems like it's down to Marshall or CSU, but that's a tough decision. Like I could understand he's from the East Coast if he ended up wanting to be closer to home. Frankly, if he commits to CSU, that's going to be a lot of noise in his life that he's going to have to deal with from the CU supporters. I could see him just being like, you want to know what? I don't really want that. I could also see him going the opposite way and being like, you want to know what? I've got something to prove. Sign me up for an opportunity to play my old squad. But just keeping everybody in the loop. He's visiting Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some depth in that wide receiver room for the Rams now. Where's he going to find more immediate playing time? That factors into this.
That's a good point.
Such a good system fit, though.
And he's like exactly what they could use. It's like they have a lot of receivers, but they don't exactly have
that guy. Yeah.
So
yeah. He would balance out the rest of the wide receiver room nicely.
Life can be chaotic. Recruiting can be chaotic.
Hell yeah.
Creating content can be chaotic. Sometimes I've got to sit back and choose to relax a little bit. I got to take a deep breath, put myself in a chill mindset, and then I crack open an ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose, chill, and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of times you choose to chill. Like I said, choose Coors Light. You can get it delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I also want to shout out Circle K. I'm going to hit up the Circle K on my way home. I'm going to grab myself a Polar Pop. I've still got one more free one from signing up with the Inner Circle.
It's Phillip Day.
And it's
4 to 7, 40 cents off per gallon. Bang, you're welcome. Sign up, QR code right now. You got to get in on the fun, and you got to do it today. Everyone at the DNVR office on fumes, on empty light, on fleek, because we're all 4 to 7 filling up at Circle K. Put the pump in, then you grab you got a Polar Pop
or a Froster. I mean, the choices are unlimited.
Yes.
Sign up with that QR code or visit circlek.com/innercircle for more information on how to become an Inner Circle member. All right, let's have some fun. It's off season. Obviously, we're in the heart of it. I'm going to be talking recruiting. I'm going to be talking Winters Grady probably 5-10 more times over the next month.
Let's go.
I'm going to try and get him on the pod. I'm going to try and get some of his homies on the pod. We're going to do everything we can in Ram Nation to let Winters Grady know that he is welcome. But like I said,
right. Start the campaign.
The future of the Pac-12, we all know this. It's been up in flux for quite some time.
Yes.
Right now, you've got a little scheduling alliance going on with Oregon State and Washington State for the next couple years. After that, though, it gets interesting. Like, does Oregon State and Washington State, do they rebuild the Pac-12? Do they just get absorbed within the Mountain West and you do a reverse merger? I think if that happens, you just become the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 brand definitely has more.
I've said it all along. Like, they're just acquiring IP.
Yeah.
Like, what are they even doing, including these teams in the Big Ten? It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's
nonsense.
It doesn't make any sense. But I recently, and I get sent all kinds of weird stuff in my email, but I've been sent some odds. Let me see. I want to make sure I credit the guy. Aiden Thompson of bookies.com. He has put together some hypothetical odds from the Pac-12, and he has looks like about 16 teams here, maybe a little bit less, mostly Mountain West teams, a couple other.
Okay.
Listed in order of most likely to least likely to be added to the Pac-12 in a rebuilt conference.
Okay.
Couple of things for context. I want to make it clear here. rebuilding the conference, even once the media rights deal expires, is very complicated. Nevada Sportsnet, Chris Murray, he has a great article from a couple months ago that break down some of the safeguards that the Mountain West has. So if the Pac-12 wanted to poach schools from the Mountain West before August 2nd, 2027, it would essentially cost, it starts at $10 million per school, and then then the second one would be 10.5, then the third school would be 11, 11.5, 12, and so forth. That's not including buyouts for the Mountain West, which if you give more than a year's notice, it would be 17 million, less than a year's notice, 34. It would be a very expensive endeavor for both these Mountain West institutions and Oregon State and Washington State to pull something like this off. That said, you have a lot of money coming in to the Pac-12, Pac-2 now, that they are going to basically just get from, the NCAA tournaments and college football playoff, all this stuff. They might just decide they want to sit on that.
In this NCAA and Power 5 suit that's coming to bear as well. Which
that's
is
true.
Very intriguing how they're included in that.
And, there's a lot of factors at play, these things behind the scenes.
The finances are wild in all this.
It's one of those things that this wouldn't happen overnight. It didn't happen when the Mountain West formed, but these things, ADs, they can be sneaky. Literally when the Mountain West formed, it was like the ADs from Utah and CSU and Wyoming and a couple other schools. They all met at DIA. And they were like, you want to know what? This isn't working for us. And that's how these things happen. It's going to be really interesting with Gloria Nevarez because, I think if you were the Pac-12 / higher end Mountain West schools, she is who you would want to run this new league. Is she truly looking out for the bottom Mountain West schools right now? It's a really weird time for the Mountain West. And I think it's pretty uneasy if your schools like Nevada and Wyoming and Hawaii and New Mexico, because, you wonder, are you guys going to stick around with us 5 years from now? I mean, they would have some money. It's not like they would just get left high and dry. But I think ultimately, if you're Oregon State and you're Washington State, I think a rebuilt Pac-12 is more desirable to them than just full on absorbing all 12 Mountain West schools, because you're carrying a lot of dead weight. And that's really what it comes down to with these leagues is do you make us more money? If not, you are taking away.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. So I just wanted to throw the context out, make sure that everybody understood it's not as simple as, well, when the Mountain West TV deal expires in a couple years, then boom, you're all gone. It would be very, very expensive, but at the moment I expect a hybrid schedule to continue, as Nick mentions in the Toyota chat here. I did not send this list over to Dre because I thought it'd be fun to kind of have him guess.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with the least likely teams or the most likely teams?
No, least is hard. Let me do most likely.
Who would be your favorite?
This is a bit of a trick answer. My favorite would be Cal and Stanford. Are they not included in this? What are the ACC stipulations?
So they're not included in this. But I do think that's something that is important in this conversation as well. I think in a rebuilt Pac-12, if you spent the money to take the top, let's say 6 Mountain West teams, maybe you poach a team like Tulane, who people are asking about in the Toyota chat, some of the top. Memphis, one
Tulane
of those.
Tulane in the Pacific Conference is kind of tough, but sure, I get it. I know we abandoned geography a long, long time ago, so that's
and I've said this before, there is zero appeal to me to adding those schools. I think if they were valuable, they would have been scooped up by the Big 12 when they took UCF and Cincinnati and all those. I think Memphis is the one you could maybe make an argument for me. Does New Orleans give a damn about Tulane at all? People are like, you get the New Orleans market. And I'm like, yeah, you get a whole lot of TVs that aren't going to be watching Tulane football. But
also I think New Orleans might be one of the trickier media markets of any major city in America.
Why? Just so much going on?
No, I mean, I've looked this up on kind of a business side, right? And the amount of, it's the only market with a major 4 team that doesn't have a newspaper with distribution in the 6 figures. I believe that newspaper was actually in Baton Rouge. So it's not even in New Orleans, and like sports radio's behind, sports
Weird.
newspapers behind. It's just
For a
just
city
not
that
this
loves sports so
massive
much,
media
that's so
market.
weird to me.
Yeah, but it's a different city, right? Like it's very catered to tourism and stuff, and like
It's a good point.
it's just a different market, right?
Well, and at the end of the day, all of Louisiana is behind LSU.
Damn straight. And Tulane itself is very much like it's DU, right?
Yeah.
It's DU that we're thinking about them currently because they've had a couple awesome football seasons, but they are very isolated in the like recent football history of that program. Tulane has not been good.
I think they've still won the SEC more recently than Vanderbilt.
Wow. Congrats to them. That's
Which is
impressive.
wild. We got Joey asking here in the Toyota chat, would a new Pac-12 bring in Gonzaga and St. Mary's hoops factor? Now, that's
Dude,
another
I
thing that
know.
I think comes into play.
How often have you wondered, like, just join the Big East with the other good hoop schools?
I'm surprised it hasn't already happened. I think Gonzaga's been one of the few schools that's been like, you want to know what? We're competing for national championships. We can schedule whoever the hell we want
Yeah.
in non-con.
Yeah.
They bow down to us in our league. Like, the grass isn't that much greener to spend all. Like, I actually applaud them for having a little bit of common sense
Yeah.
and be like, you want to know what doesn't make sense? Sending Gonzaga soccer to New York City, to play St. John's.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
But if you could associate with Cal and Stanford, if you could associate with the top, the top we're about to get into, the top Mountain West teams, I think you've got an interesting argument at least.
Yeah, and regionality does still matter, I think.
And I think it'll matter more on this half of the
making
country.
a Western league, I think
That's what I
helps,
mean. Like, you could create something that is very clearly like the premier West Coast basketball league, especially with
Yes,
the Pac-12 no
yes,
longer
also.
being in the mix. Like the
Yep.
Big 12, I've argued for schools like Arizona. Like, are you better off, really? Like you're
In
a
the Big
guaranteed,
12?
yeah. Like you were a guaranteed 1 seed every year. You were going to be the
I mean,
premier
you were
school,
the Kansas of the Pac-12.
and now you get to play Kansas and Texas and Baylor and Texas. Like, have fun. That's a murderer's row.
No doubt. Back to answer your question.
Yeah, we got a little sidetracked here.
Give me SMU as the
as
most
the
likely
as the
candidate.
most likely candidate.
And then I'll take San Diego State, since I believe the question was a plural.
It was San Diego State at plus 250, the most likely candidate for Pac-12
Was
expansive.
SMU in the top 3?
Well, SMU's in the ACC now.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I forgot.
They would have. I mean, they would have been mine too. But if they weren't willing to join the ACC for no money
That's
at
where
all,
the Dallas market actually does matter.
Yeah.
Gosh. Boise? Are they that foolish to put Boise second?
so Boise's top 5.
Okay.
Boise's not as high as you maybe expect, and the teams above them kind of interesting.
UNLV,
Yes.
Fresno.
No.
I guess that makes sense.
Fresno's one of those where
Fresno's tough.
they're competitive, they're always going to be relevant, but they don't have a ton of financial backing. It's not like a super desirable market. It's just a tough spot. All right, the top 4, San Diego State at plus 250.
Yes.
Colorado State, number 2 at plus 300.
Let's go.
UNLV plus 350, followed by Boise State at plus 400. Those are considered the top
Okay.
4. I
That
think
makes
that makes sense. I think
That makes
those
sense.
would be the 4 teams I would try and, if I was like, who do I want out of the Mountain West?
Yeah.
Those would be the top 4. Now's where it gets really interesting.
Add the lame duck couple ACC schools we
Yeah.
talked about, Cal and Stanford.
Who I do think would, especially if you rebuilt a Pac-12 like 8-9 years from now, when they're spending
1000%.
all this money to send their soccer team
Dude.
and their Olympic sports, which they take a ton of pride in, aren't having as much success.
Also, the ACC was never their preferred home.
And the ACC didn't want them. It was just like,
yeah.
it's not going to be a
And that
natural fit.
ACC contract is the one that's going to be up the soonest.
Yeah. Lot to follow. Fresno State, 5th most likely at plus 650. The first team outside of the Mountain West, UTSA at plus 750.
Oof. Honestly, I'd rather some FCS teams than
No
UTSA.
Memphis listed on here, which is weird to me.
Wouldn't you rather like North Dakota, South Dakota State before you get into UTSA.
I mean, the argument is just Texas. That's what it comes down to.
It's San Antonio.
Yeah.
Even.
It's you get a big major market in Texas and you have better. In theory, it helps you recruit Texas, but I don't buy into that. I don't really think it does much for you.
We haven't seen that at all.
Well, it's like, does adding the 14th most relevant program in Texas really do much for you? Like, it's not TCU, it's not Houston.
I'd honestly rather Rice. I think Rice has more pull.
And from an academic standpoint, I think Rice makes sense with trying to lure Cal and Stanford back for wanting schools like SMC and Gonzaga to be in the mix.
But I feel like this is basically the pitch of a Rutgers or even a Vandy. Like, whoa, it's the national
San Antonio.
market. I'm like, no, dude.
You know what Charles Barkley says about San Antonio?
Don't take me down that road, J-Mike. Don't take me there.
Who do you...
Shout out to the women of San Antonio.
Should put that no expansion / the Pac-12 disbands listed at plus 300, the same as CSU. So the same as the second most likely team to add. It's saying that, which makes sense though. That's why I wanted to point out like the financial hurdles. This isn't just some gimme. Like the TV deal is done in 2 years. You're gonna take 6 Mountain West schools. Like you got to either
the timing's tough.
Spend a couple $100 million and find a way to foot that bill between the top Mountain West schools / Oregon State and Washington State. Or you absorb the entire conference, which you would need the majority to do so, like 10 out of 12 schools, I think.
The timing is complex because how long can the Pac-2 survive as this two-person? And I'm really fascinated to see how this suit against the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences that Big 12 and ACC in the last couple of days have already kind of seemingly agreed to want to settle, because settling means a $2 billion bill instead of a $20 billion bill, and a $2 billion bill that you can pay over a 10-year period rather than immediately. They are going to settle. But the Pac-12, they were talking about the Power 5. All indications I am getting
is that Oregon State and Washington State would be on the hook for
fitted with the bill. Yeah. And that, I mean, honestly, the survival of the NCAA, forget the Pac-2, 12, whatever, 10. I preferred when it was the Pac-10.
I did too.
Like, how many months do we have in that? 15? Like, I really
feels
don't
like a couple of years tops.
I really don't know. So it's the beauty. It's what fascinates me in all these conversations we're able to have. But truth is, we are entering a massive unknown. We are rewriting the future of the sport every single day. And you just don't know what 2 years from now, let alone 2027, is going to hold. You just don't.
Who would be, in your estimation, out of the Mountain West, the two least likely teams? And this is based on odds, but...
What a dick question. Let's see, least likely.
Who's getting left behind in this instance?
Yeah, I mean...
We respect one of them.
Nevada for sure.
So Nevada was actually listed higher than I thought. Now they're bottom three.
They don't know ball.
They're bottom three.
Air Force is gonna get that respect because they're an academy, but Air Force makes 0 sense to me, man.
I don't think Air Force. I think
especially
Air Force.
In the new NIL
I think at that
system,
point you try and team up with Army and Navy at that point.
Yeah,
which probably is what should happen anyways. And honestly,
they should be working on that pronto.
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
I wouldn't be heartbroken to not play Air Force every year.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No,
that's a tradition I can live without.
Yeah, that trip to the spring sucks.
Yeah.
Yes. It's Wyoming, huh?
It's Wyoming and Hawaii. It's Hawaii at plus 2,000, Wyoming at plus 1,750. Hawaii would be more likely than Wyoming.
Dude, no, Hawaii. To me, Hawaii, okay, maybe not a sleeping giant. What's less than a giant? They're like a sleeping, big and tall guy. I think
they have about as much of an argument as you could make for a San Diego State or a UNLV.
Hawaii cranks out talent.
They have more local talent.
They've had success in my lifetime.
Yeah, they've
saying something compared to some of these other schools.
They're going to be a bowl team this year.
And like, I just think there's appeal to like come to Hawaii, play Power 5 football.
Well, and you get the late night window, which they love for TV,
Yes.
like especially in a rebuilt Pac-12 where instead of it being on like the Spectrum network or whatever the app is that I have to watch it on when they're in Hawaii, like it's on,
Shout out
you know,
Spectrum.
FS1. Like there's some appeal there. I mean,
They should buy
will
out
say-
the Mount West app though, because honestly, kind of an underrated app.
it's awesome.
Pac-12, buy the Mount West app.
People,
it's
like-
amazing. Also, sell that stupid network. We hate it. Sell the Pac-12 network. We never want to see it again. Please, I beg you.
Yeah, at least the Mountain West network's accessible. Like
It is.
I know it's not a moneymaker,
is.
but I mean, that's the thing I talk about all the
shouldn't
time. I remember when non-conference basketball games just weren't viewable. Like you just weren't going to get to watch them. You could listen on the radio if you
Disgusting.
wanted. Like, and this
Disgusting.
wasn't that long ago. This is like 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Shame on you.
For
all.
shame.
Yeah.
This has been fun. I appreciate everybody in the Toyota chat. I'm with a lot of the comments. Honestly, you got to do what's best for CSU, but the thought
What's
of
best for CSU?
remaining relevant in whatever this modern landscape for college football is, and I think that's most likely trying to get in a rebuilt Pac-12. It's got a better brand identity. Being associated with Oregon State and Washington State, it makes more sense than being associated with like the New Mexicos and Nevadas of the world. But you're walking away from a lot of tradition, and obviously
Feels like the G5 stuck in a bit of quicksand right now.
that's my
The
thing. Is like,
future of the G5 is hard to predict and see right now.
well, and I think the big question is are you actually more relevant in the national landscape in a rebuilt Pac-12, losing some of this Mountain West dead weight? I call it that, but I don't really mean it. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but losing some of these teams that aren't providing a ton in terms of revenue. Like, are you actually more relevant, or are you just going to spend a bunch more money for people to be like, oh, that's still the crappy Pac-12, you know, like it's not what it used to be. That's a tough decision. And I think a lot of that probably banks on whether if you think schools like Cal and Stanford are willing to go back, you jump and you hope that that's what works out. If you think there's no chance of, then you might as well just do a reverse merger and save the money, and
I know.
maybe somewhere down the line you can trim some fat. But
Some days I just wonder, like, man, the FCS playoffs seem like lots of fun. I don't think CSU's at that caliber. I think they're at a much higher caliber.
and that's the problem, is you're like kind of in between. You
And,
don't
like,
really
you've
fit into either.
Look, with the expansion of the Power 4, CSU definitely fits in that mix.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah.
The commitment that's been made to athletics, everything.
Well, and my thing is, and I've said this a million times, but if Kansas and Utah can have multiple high majors, Power 5 teams, how can a state like Colorado not? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Preach, man. Preach.
It doesn't make sense.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Obviously, it's fun to speculate. I would hate to lose having CSU and Wyoming in the same conference. I would hope that if that were to happen, they would continue to play each other. Wouldn't shock me if Wyoming told CSU, frankly, to stick it where the sun doesn't shine if they left them behind, though. And I really wouldn't blame them. I think it would be a shame to lose 125 plus years of history, but you've got to do what you can to protect yourself. And that's where all this gets really interesting, is I think what's best for schools like San Diego State, Boise State, CSU, and UNLV is not what's best for New Mexico and Wyoming and Nevada. And how loyal to each other are you? What kind of conversations are happening behind the scenes? What is Gloria Nevarez trying to do? How, is her,
Come on, Gloria.
is she trying to keep this Mountain West together, or is she just trying to create the best possible league that she's going to be running? I mean, she's smart. She knows like all of this is going to be into factor, the money. It's going to get really complicated, but it's going to give us a lot of fun stuff to talk about like this in the summer. Just in case you guys are curious, I'll run through the list real quick in order of most likely to least likely, according to bookies.com. San Diego State, followed by CSU / no expansion at all. The Pac-12 disbands. Then UNLV, Boise State, Fresno State, UTSA, New Mexico at plus 850, a little higher than I would have guessed. San Jose State at plus 1,000, Air Force plus 1,200, Utah State plus 1,200, Tulane at plus 1,300, North Texas plus 1,400. Nevada plus 1,500. And then we wrap up with Wyoming and Hawaii at the end.
Oof.
Interesting time to be a college football fan. Interesting
Always
time to be a
J-Mike.
CSU fan. But no matter what's happening, I'll be here making content for you guys, keeping you up to date. Tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. I have Bob Rose of the saintsnews.com. It's awesome. Really good interview. He was great. You guys are going to enjoy it. Always proud to be y'all. Much love. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.